What's up, YouTube? Brett Hoover from Rants here. All right, guys. I was reading this Screen Rant article, and it just reminded a question just popped up in my head, and it's been something that's really been dwelling in there really since the end of Game of Thrones. Of course, they were going to make that long. I think it was the Long Night. Was the original spinoff that they were going to go with that was going to detail thousand or the life thousands of years before these families that we knew really were at their infancy to a certain extent, and then they decided to go with the House of the Dragon, and to me that was always a very very perplexing choice, was House of the Dragon. But then I'm sitting here reading in this article, and I'm like, I knew about some of these, but then some of them kind of slipped my mind that these are going to be still at least talked about or in the works. Series based off of basically Game of Thrones spinoffs: The Tale of Dunk and Egg, Nine Voyages, Flea Bottom, and 10,000 Ships. Now, how many of those do you really believe are actually going to be done? You know, I've made um I've said here on Rancer Us a number of times that I believe that the House of the Dragon won't be a complete failure, but I believe in HBO's view it's going to be a complete failure because I don't believe it's going to live up to Game of Thrones expectations. I mean, you got to think about this. This Game of Thrones at one time was so big that it was literally like you don't get these water cooler moments anymore more when it comes to shows. You just don't. And Game of Thrones was one of those. Like, that's something that we really haven't got since maybe the early 2000s, 90s. When there was like sitcoms and things that everybody watched. Now there's so many streaming services, so many shows that people like. It's hard to find that one show that almost everybody can talk about. And Game of Thrones was one of those shows. So for the House of the Dragon to succeed, it would also have to be one of those shows. And I've complained here on Rancer Us. I know a lot of fans out there because I've seen them, and the fan pages and so forth. When it comes to the casting of House of the Dragon, a lot of people are really disgruntled by that, and I don't blame them. The cast. This is the way I looked at the casting. I felt like the casting of House of the Dragon reminded me of what a casting from, I don't know, some gritty New York or Chicago crime show would be. Not what you would expect these beautiful Targaryens and that were seen as almost gods among men, with flying in on their dragons, so forth. And the cast was just so much of a letdown that I mean, just that alone got me kind of uninterested in this series. And then you add the end of Daenerys Targaryen. Um, and you cannot tell me that that's not going to factor in to this show. I think a lot of people think that a lot of Daenerys Targaryen fans are going to be interested in House of the Dragon. I don't believe that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be the polar opposite of it. I almost feel like it's just rubbing salt in the wounds at this point because a lot of Daenerys Targaryen fans feel like she was not treated right in the last season of Game of Thrones. That the writers and HBO just did not do that character justice. And you know what? I think it's almost valid to a certain extent. I really do. I think her fall from grace was not um, was not properly done, especially in that last season. It just wasn't enough episodes for it to have been done that way. And I don't even know if they would have had the same amount of episodes as they had in the earlier season if they could have even pulled it off then. Probably not. But I think especially a lot of Daenerys fans are still pretty pissed off about that Game of Thrones ending. So the idea that they come out with House of the Dragon and then expect all those people are to come back and to really do this, I don't know. This was a uh, the book that it's based off of is basically just an encyclopedia. I mean, that's how it reads. What is it? Fire and Blood is the name of it. I mean, it's not really, the epic tales that you would uh, expect for them to want to adapt in the first place. I feel like it's going to cause a lot of chaos. I really do. Where that the showrunners are going to have leeway to do a lot of things that maybe George R. R. Martin isn't going to be a fan of, or fans who think what George R. R. Martin would the direction that they think he would go, they're not going to be happy with that. I would be shocked, absolutely and totally shocked, if every single one of these um, of these series are even made. I really would be shocked about it. I could see, I think it's Nine Voyages. I think that's the one that goes with the Valerians. I could see that going on because House of the Dragon is going to have them in it. So I can maybe see that spinoff happening. I definitely do not see the Tales of Dunk and Egg actually happening. I know that's probably one of the more popular ones, but I just don't see that happening because I think either HBO or fans are going to be sick and tired of the Targaryens by this point. They're going to want something new, something fresh. And I don't think that they're going to get that. Flea Bottom is just I was thinking that that series had already been canceled, but I could be completely and totally wrong on that. If so, I mean, nobody's going to watch that. No one's going to be interested in watching just, you know, what takes place, on the streets. And, kind of having, the families that we know kind of in the backdrop. That's just not going to work. That will never work. I think 10,000 Ship is about Numeria, or I could have those backwards, but I think when it comes to Nine Voyages and 10,000 Ships, I think that that one has to do with Numeria. But my point is I just believe that House of the Dragon, at least from HBO standards and Game of Thrones standards, is going to be an utter failure. Not because it doesn't bring in ratings and not because it doesn't have a loyal fan base, but because it doesn't live up to the expectations of what Game of Thrones lived up to. And I think that alone will doom it earlier than expected. I'm not going to say that they're going to, do season one and then they're going to be done with it, but I would not be shocked by about season two or season three or however long it goes that you start seeing less episodes and HBO wanting to move on from this. But I just do not believe that we're going to see another Targaryen spinoff in the works. I think I think right now people are like, don't do the whole Star Wars thing where you just follow a lineage. Like, let's see something new. Let's see something different. I understand why they do that with the Skywalkers in Star Wars, but at the same time, I feel like Game of Thrones is such an expanded universe. I guess Star Wars, you could argue, is too. But if you don't read the comics, you don't really know that. Um, but as far as Game of Thrones is when it comes to the books and the lore and things along those lines, everybody has the one thing that they want to see in a spin-off series. And I think you could get epic gold when it comes to one of these shows if you do it right. But if you do something different, I think that's what it's going to take to get people truly excited. And I just feel like at the end of the day, HBO made the wrong choice in what uh, fans would be most interested in. I actually think The Long Night would have been a more interesting and compelling story, but I don't know how it would necessarily have worked because there wouldn't have been all the houses that we knew. We'd had to learn, a bunch of different names and maybe not as familiar names. Um, and maybe that would have taken away some of the lore and the mystique when it come to it. And plus, it's not like Game of Thrones really did, the White Walkers, which were I think they were called the others in the book. really justice to a certain extent, especially the Night King. So I don't really, in which he wasn't even in the book. So I mean, it's not like they could just do what they did in the series and then bring it back to the to this new series. So I can maybe see why it would not work so well, especially with book readers, because one, you'd be taking out the familiar characters that the book readers knew, and you would be, and they can handle a little bit of change up, but when you're talking about just fully immersing it in unbook related things, such as how they depicted the White Walkers um, in Game of Thrones. Maybe that would have been too much for fans that just are fans of the book. But I don't know. But let me know in the comments down below. Do you believe that every single one of these spinoffs are actually going to take place, or do you believe that House of the Dragon um, will be probably the only one that we will see? Or I would go so far to say a very, very, very long time. I'd say I will. This is my prediction on this. This will be the only spinoff that we see of Game of Thrones, unless George R. R. Martin can finish his books, which I don't see that happening anytime soon. Anyways, guys, let me know what y'all think in the comments down below. As always, thanks for watching. Y'all take care.